Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Talking Point. Now, the World Cup is done. We're bored. Get over it. Argentina won. Big whoop. Now back to the Premier League. That is what we've got to talk about. Yes, the Premier League is back this weekend with a bang. Boxing Day football. Here we go. And so I thought I'd bring in the two most prestigious people to talk about football in the world, Henry Hill and Dougie Critchley. Are you well?
I'm very well.
Good to hear. Well. Are you well?
Your intro just reminded me of, you got to die to get 3 points.
You do. These clubs will be dying to get 3 points this weekend. So I thought before the Premier League comes back, we'd quickly try and go through a bunch of the biggest talking points from the Premier League and their teams and how they're going to be affected by the World Cup and any resulting injuries and so on and so forth, and how they'll be feeling about the Premier League coming back. So why not start at the very top? Arsenal Football Club, Mikel Arteta's boys.
Oof.
Did we think they were going to be at this point in the league by this point of the year?
Did I think they were going to be top at this point?
Yeah, probably a better explanation, yeah.
No, I wouldn't say I did. I do think that they've been building towards something good for a long time. I think they're a classic example is if you give a coach a bit of time, invest in the squad, bring in some young players, and you can create something pretty good, and he's done exactly that. I'm still sceptical about their ability to maintain their top, and I do think losing Jesus is a problem. I don't think it's a huge problem. He's probably not had the biggest goal output we've expected, but he's a very selfless player. He does work hard for the team. But yeah, they've got Saka coming back in. I wouldn't be surprised if they make another January edition. Arteta's probably not. It's probably less ideal now, especially the Ben White saga as well. Obviously, we're not quite sure what happened there, but returning from the team early. I'm intrigued to see how this Arsenal are going to come out. I think the World Cup came at the wrong time for them as a team. It's kind of disrupted their momentum, and I think to pick that up again is going to be a great, great challenge because City are going to be raring to go. They know what they're doing at this point. Yeah,
I mean, how do you feel that Jesus injury will affect them? I feel like that's the big one because even though, yes, his goal contributions weren't necessarily amazing, he definitely had an overall impact on that side. And look, Eddie Nketiah is on 100k a week. He needs to be playing well once he does get into that squad. But do you think he's going to have the same impact?
Yeah, I actually kind of disagree with Henry. I think it's a really, really bad injury for Arsenal. I think it's probably the second worst they could have got.
Who would have been first?
After Thomas Partey.
Okay.
I think Thomas Partey last year, their win percentage dropped to about 40% without him compared to about 67% with him. But Gabriel Jesus, I think, as you say, goal output not been the best, hasn't finished a lot of chances, but I think Thierry Henry described him as contagious earlier in the season, just his work ethic and how he links the entire attack. And I think it's a massive, massive loss. Eddie Nketiah, much more of a penalty box operator, and did have that great run at the end of last year after struggling to get into the side and earned that contract. Big pressure on him. But I think Arsenal will get a forward of some sort in January.
Whether that's with the load.
Mudryk and Martinelli moves into the central areas to cover or play instead of Eddie Nketiah, I'm not quite sure. Or whether it's an out-and-out 9. There's been talks about Vlahovic, depending on what the Juve situation goes like. So I wouldn't be surprised if they dipped into the market, but I am a little bit worried about their title hopes. I never gave them much chance, but now I think they are very, very small.
And look, if they don't finish first and they finish second, that is still an incredible achievement.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, I predicted them to finish 5th at the start of the season. And I think a lot of people said sort of 4th would be a great season. And they've just been phenomenal. I think, depth in defensive areas has made a massive difference. They've got a great choice of left backs now. Ben White's come in and made a massive difference. Saliba, is, of course, as well. And Granit Xhaka has just been reborn. So hopefully they can carry on that momentum. The good thing about it is none of their players went that deep in the World Cup. Martinelli didn't really feature that much for Brazil. Saka was probably the deepest. Partey was out fairly early. Saliba didn't play. Xhaka was out at the last 16 stage. So hopefully they can carry a bit of momentum because I want to see a title race. Whether that's going to happen or not is a different question.
Interesting. Let me know which team you guys at home think have been affected by the World Cup the most. For me, I think it probably is Arsenal with Gabriel Jesus' injury. They didn't even play that much, which is the big shame. Okay, moving on to my beloved Chelsea.
The Blues.
Chelsea Football Club.
I thought you said we were starting at the top and working down. I don't know how Chelsea snuck into second.
I've just done it as I've gone about it. We're doing top 6 and then we'll get on to the others as well. Yes, Chelsea Football Club.
I mean, you might as well take this out.
Sure. I mean, when I was looking at this earlier and I saw that we haven't won a domestic game, a game in England, or at least in the League Cup and the Premier League since the 16th of October, I had a little bit of
That's a good month before the break,
of a shock.
Yeah.
And so I think Chelsea are going into it having lost to Aston Villa in a 1-0 loss in Abu Dhabi, I think, in a friendly. I think they're going to be playing another friendly as well. That being said, they didn't have a lot of their players. Even Reece James, who is coming back, didn't feature. And so I think that's the big one. If they can have these guys that are injured, Reece James being the number one, and also Ben Chilwell coming back and into that squad, I feel like might be a little bit too early for Boxing Day, but by January, that is a huge plus. I mean, Brozier going down with an ACL or MCL is not good news. It just kind of felt like, if you basically don't want to get injured at the moment, don't go to Chelsea, don't play at Stamford Bridge. It's quite worrying how frequent it is, especially in Brozier's one. It's just like a freak collision. And so it can't get any worse, I think, is how I'm looking at it.
One positive I would say is that you did manage to sign a player for next summer, though.
Yes, it looks it. It looks it. The Christopher Nkunku is done. Where he's going to play, I've got no idea. I think Chelsea are going to be having a big sale over this January window and also the summer window as well. I think quite a few players will be leaving. Obviously, names like Hakim Ziyech, Christian Pulisic, Kai Havertz, they're all going to be up in the air. What's the future for Callum Hudson-Odoi? And when you're signing someone like Nkunku, he's not going to be sitting on the bench. So you've got another player who's going to be in that starting 11. And if you're already going to keep playing Raheem Sterling, he's going to be getting there. You see Mason Mount,
undroppable. Exactly.
Like there's not who's going to. A few players aren't going to be happy with that predicament. Look, Chelsea's biggest aim now is top 4. That's it. Forget everything else. Just get top 4.
The biggest worry for Chelsea is if they lose another game in the next month or they get shock defeats. Because the pressure's on Potter already. You've seen a lot of people getting in the prep in social media. He's sort of sleptwalked for a few bad results. I'm sorry, but the way that this Chelsea operate, I just worry that a few bad results and you could see Todd Bowley really panic.
I honestly think Graham Potter would have to finish below 10th to get sacked. I think this is the first,
even with Trigger Todd.
I know, but honestly, I like the way. Maybe I'm going to be hysterically wrong, and this will come back to bite me in the bum. But
I think you're right.
But I think this is only the second time in the past 20 years Chelsea have given someone a 5-year contract, and to go and sack him that quickly. One, it costs a super amount of money, which I know that they don't want to be doing. They don't want to continue this fire and hire scheme, which did obviously prove successful at Chelsea, and they're committed to him. And so, I think it would have to go incredibly wrong, which it could do. You never know. Touch wood, it doesn't. For it to happen. But that is Chelsea. We'll see. I've got Man City here. Look, I just want to quickly say, Guardiola, new deal.
Guardiola, new deal. Haaland, completely fresh.
Scary, right?
Not many of their players I can think of off the top of my head went deep in the World Cup, particularly either, who aren't sort of interchangeable in their many talented stars in that squad. I'm pretty worried about what City are going to bring in. Yeah.
And look, I don't think there's any point wasting time talking about them. They're going to be frightening. They're going to be insane. So get ready for them, Arsenal fans. Okay, moving on to Spurs. Dougie. Spurs have had the best start in a long time throughout their club history. Fans, though, are frustrated with the way first halves are going for Conte. Second halves are obviously much better. How do we feel the second half of their season, or really the next 2/3 of their season, is going to go? Kulusevski looks like he's coming back. Players coming back from injury. Again, not too many apart from what's the Argentine? Romero went incredibly far in the competition.
He's important though. He's an important player, Romero.
He is. How do you think they're going to be?
I think it's difficult to know, really. I think Spurs have just, their results have been so much better than their performances, really. And their position in the table is actually not too bad at all. Nice little cushion, although they've played a game more than Man United, I believe. It'll be interesting to see what sort of mental state Harry Kane comes back in. Obviously, had a really torrid end to his tournament. No one needs to go back into the details of that. Everyone knows what happens. But that was pretty upsetting for him, and it's probably his first major failure at international level on a personal level, where it's kind of solely down to him. Well, it wasn't solely down to him, but you know what I mean? A huge moment like that, which hasn't gone for him. But then there are also some attackers that are going to come back in. I thought Son actually had quite a good World Cup in a pretty, not the most exciting South Korea side. And Richarlison was excellent in the games he played for Brazil as well, starting as that 9. So it'd be interesting to see him, whether he can share a bit more of the load with Kane in the second half of the season, because Conte did say that Kane was pretty exhausted when he went to the World Cup, which could come back to bite him in the second half of the season, having just played this massive World Cup campaign.
Do you think they need some January signings? Obviously, last year they brought in Kulusevski, they brought in Bentancur, and that really helped.
Yeah, for sure. I think Bentancur arrived on deadline day last year, and I think he's been a sensational signing. One of the best signings in world football in this calendar year for me, alongside the likes of Bruno Guimaraes and Haaland and obvious names like that, and maybe Tchouaméni at Real Madrid. But yes, I think Paratici is a transfer operator. Conte gets very frustrated unless he constantly has new players coming in and new blood, because they do get pretty exhausted at Spurs with the sort of fitness regime that they keep there. And they're not quite perfect yet. There's obviously issues at right wing back. Hasn't really liked the look of Jed Spence, and Emerson Royal continues to not really get much better, despite the fact he's only 23, so maybe he will in time, but doesn't feel like it's ever going to work out for him at Spurs. And then centre-backs feels like they're glaring sort of lack of quality, really. I think Eric Dyer and Romero are reasonably good, but then probably haven't seen the Clement Longley we were expecting to yet. He definitely hasn't got back to that severe and early Barcelona form that we were hoping he was going to bring. So maybe a bit of transfer business from Spurs. I think they might be one of the busier top 6 clubs.
If you were a betting man right now, do you think they finish in top 4?
It's really difficult because I feel like Newcastle had such good momentum before the World Cup, and Man United I expect to get better throughout the season with more time under Ten Hag. I think it'll be incredibly close between Spurs and Man United. I think Newcastle do get third, to be honest. So right now, I'm going to say that Spurs miss out.
Okay.
And Conte walks.
Oh, huge. Heard it first. Conte leaving. Okay, then let's move on to Manchester United, because goodness gracious, this club has had a hell of a month. Cristiano Ronaldo, gone. Sancho,
gone.
Sancho, solo training, fitness camp, could come back a new player. Maguire, great World Cup. Been told he could possibly come back into this United squad and start. Rashford, Martinez, fantastic tournament. Actually, a lot of positives for United, Henry. Do you think they're coming back as actually a better chance for the second half of the season?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ten Hag will be delighted. He's got sort of someone he would probably consider a hindrance out of his dressing room, and I think they can sort of go back to some of the other big voices in the room, like Bruno Fernandes, etc. As you said, Maguire looking good, Rashford good. The only concern is that we've seen Cavani go, and now we've seen Ronaldo go. Rashford is quite clearly better when he's playing out wide and not through the middle. Martial, I'm sorry, I think his race is run in terms of being a reliable sort of striker for that club. So they do need to get someone through the door yeah. Remember when they got like Igalo through and he at least did a job? They just need to get someone who can go into that centre forward position and at least take some strain off some other forwards. I think they could go big for someone interesting like Vlahovic, etc. So yeah, I would like to see them bring in another centre forward. But beyond that, yeah, I think. Especially if the club is actually going to get sold in this calendar year too. There's lots to look forward to.
Though that also that might actually
hinder them in general.
Yeah, hinder them. If you're saying they need to buy players, why would the current owners want to put more money in? They're not necessarily putting money in, but anyway, have money go out.
Point aside, I think if they're going to they're fifth now, if they're going to continue to press on and get top 4, which they look very capable of doing, I would back them to get top 4. I just think they need to get a striker reinforcement in.
Okay, Manchester United. Done. Liverpool, Dougie. Let's get on to Jurgen Klopp's men, because first half of the season, or first third of the season, to forget, I think, to be quite honest. Had a lot of things go against them. And then they've had an injury to Diaz too. How are you feeling about their season going on, and also Darwin Núñez didn't necessarily light up the World Cup?
No.
How are you feeling?
Played in a really poor Uruguay side. I think they were one of the flops of the World Cup, given how excited everyone was before the tournament. I think that Luis Diaz injury is really, really annoying. Yeah. I thought he was one of their better performers in the first half of the season. Was supposedly, hadn't gone to the World Cup with Colombia. This was supposed to be his time, and then a pretty serious injury. And actually, if you looked at their sort of forward line, they were all supposed to be quite fresh, because Firmino didn't go, Salah obviously didn't go, Jota was injured but was supposed to be back around now. So I thought Liverpool could have really hit the ground running in the first month or so of the season, then go into that Real Madrid game in February with quite a lot of confidence. As for now, that gap just feels quite massive, and missing another key player for that period. What they probably will do in January is sign a midfielder. Klopp admitted that they made a mistake in the summer. It feels like Naby Keita's never going to be fit again.
Amrabat has been linked to him.
Yeah, I think that's a risk with Amrabat, to be totally honest. I'm not sure he's a Champions League winning quality, which is what Liverpool want to be doing over the next few years, or Premier League winning quality. Look, he had a great World Cup. It was a phenomenal story. I love watching Morocco go far, but there was a reason that no one was really talking about him at Fiorentina during the previous few months. Like, I think he was linked with Spurs in the summer. That's probably the level of club he could go to, like lower Champions League club. But for Liverpool, who want to be competing for major honours over the next few years, I'm not sure he's anywhere close to the level of Fabinho. But I think a more physical midfielder is where they need to go. I think they are a little bit lightweight in there, particularly when it's Harvey Elliott and Thiago.
How important is Nunez's rest of his season? Because obviously, stats-wise, actually not terrible. 5 goals, 2 assists in 10 Premier League games. But do you think he needs to go even more, improve even more so, or do you think that kind of rate is okay?
Yeah, well, I remember before the World Cup started, he actually was on a really good run of form. I think he scored twice in his last Premier League game. I think it was against Southampton, although that's really testing my memory now. But yeah, Nunez was really hitting his straps, really, which was great to see, because he arrived with a lot of pressure and then people were very quick to criticise him. So I just wanted him to continue to evolve. But to be honest, it's not just about Nunez. You know, Jota can play through the middle. Firmino had a really good start to the season as well. I think he's Liverpool's top league scorer as well. So they've got plenty of weapons. I just think with a bit of strengthening in midfield and someone like Ibrahima Konate coming back off a really positive World Cup for him in the minutes he got for France, I think they can push on. And you expect Trent and Robertson, who were really quite poor in the first half of the season, they can't be that bad again. These are quality players.
Interesting. All right, Newcastle, the new boys on the block. Henry, how are you feeling about their future? Do you think they're going to spend big in January as well? And where would they spend? Or do you think they can keep up the level they're performing at, or were performing at before the World Cup?
My understanding is that they actually can't spend big. They have. We have to remember they've invested a hell of a lot of money.
200 million.
Yeah, at this point, they've invested it well. It has to be said. I think they've pretty much got it spot on with most of their additions so far. And yeah, I mean, but Isak, it will almost be like a new signing in this half of the season. Very true. He was injured for a lot of it. Which is a shame, because anyone who's followed Continental Club knows we think he's a really, really exciting player. He's a great player. So yeah, he'll be like a new addition coming in. They spent a lot of money on him to get him through the door. So yeah, I think Bruno didn't play a whole lot of football at the World Cup either, and he's obviously probably their most important player when you think about that squad. Callum Wilson looked good for the World Cup, also didn't get tons of minutes, but he's a great striker, isn't he? So they've got a lot to be really positive about.
Do you think it came at the wrong time then, the World Cup?
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you. It probably did come at the wrong time. However, I just think Eddie Howe's been so brilliant in the time that he's been there, obviously, because they managed to keep that momentum through the summer after getting them promoted. So he knows what he's doing. He's got a squad that they all realise what a great opportunity they have in front of them. They could make top 4 if they keep it up. So yeah, I think that Newcastle have a ton to look forward to, and they've got the players to keep it up.
Yeah, it's frightening playing Newcastle at the moment, and obviously Chelsea lost them. So, all right, we've touched upon the top end. Let's jump down to the bottom 5. Leeds, West Ham, Everton, Southampton, Wolves. Who are you most worried for the rest of this season?
Out of those names, well, Wolves have just appointed Julian Lopetegui, very experienced manager. You know, his end to his time at Sevilla didn't go how he wanted, but still, I think it was 3 top 4 finishes before that. Won the Europa League. Really high quality manager. Same with Unai Emery going to Aston Villa. Like, the standard of manager in the Premier League right now is insanely high. Someone like Southampton with Nathan Jones going in, first top flight managerial job.
Worry for him.
Yeah, and their squad it's so short of goals really, outside of Ward-Prowse, and Che Adams continues to fire occasionally on and off. Adam Armstrong hasn't really worked out as a signing. I do worry for Southampton quite a bit. And then from the rest of that list, I mean, you'd expect more from Forest after this break. Maybe gelling towards that side.
Doing more deals as well.
More deals, yes. They did another deal in early December. Couldn't believe it. 24 now, what is it, since the start of the summer. So hopefully they'll improve. But yeah, I wasn't particularly impressed with them in the first half of the season, but maybe that's to be expected.
Interesting. Do you think Leeds, West Ham and Everton are going to improve? Because West Ham, by their standards, and obviously the signings that they made in the summer...
They're fine.
But the season just gone, or the part of the season just gone, they've not been performing to the level they should have.
They haven't, but I think they were getting better. They were building towards a bit more momentum towards the end. They've obviously got the Conference League they're competing with too. I think just when you look, say, every other team, you're right. If any other season, they could look difficult, but Leeds are on a roller coaster this term. I'm never quite sure. They should be doing way better with the players they've got at their disposal. I said at the start in the season with Team Talk, I'm worried for Jesse Marsch this season. I'm still worried for Jesse Marsch for all of the positivity and the great character which he does bring to the game. I'm still not quite sure that across a full season his tactics are astute enough to deal with the turbulence of the Premier League. And Everton as well. They after looking like they were kind of stabilised under Lampard. They've suddenly dropped off again. We've seen Goodison Park getting furious with some of the results there. I think Frank Lampard's got a massive 2 months coming up. I still think he's a good manager. But yeah, there's worries throughout this team. I actually think Forest are probably the ones I'm most optimistic about. I just think that they've had time really now to gel and get their players working together, because more time that they can get that group of players to learn to know each other, the better. And I think they have been producing better results recently. So I'm excited for Forest. I'm worried for Leeds, Wolves and Southampton.
Obviously, Southampton and Wolves aside, but of the four there, Leeds, Everton, West Ham and Forest, which manager do you think is currently under the most pressure? I think Moyes personally. I think Moyes has got a game or two. If he loses if he doesn't win one of the games in his next three, I think he's in trouble.
Do you agree with that, Deeks?
I don't know. I think he's got so much in the bank really from that Europa League run last year, and they couldn't this season they couldn't really do better than last year. They reached their pinnacle as a club really last year without massive investment. And to be fair, they did invest very heavily. But I think Jared Bowen's going to have a better second half of the season. I thought Scamacca showed moments. Paqueta as well. You know, he had a great campaign with Brazil until it all slightly fell apart against Croatia. I think West Ham will be fine. I kind of with Henry. I think Jesse Marsch is walking a tightrope.
Okay, interesting. Well, there we have it, guys. The Premier League is back. Let me know how excited you are. Let me know what you think of your team's current future, the plans in January, the manager, so on and so forth, down below. And we want every single kind of team. So if you are a fan of Leeds or a fan of West Ham or a fan of Chelsea, let me know down there as well. We'll try to reply to a bunch in the comments. If you guys want to watch more Football Daily content, then click on screen right now. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. If they want to find out about some European football, where can they head?
Yeah, well, wait till Friday on Continental Club. We'll be dropping in the afternoon around 4 or 5 p.m. And we are talking about January signings that make perfect sense from around Europe in January.
There you have it. Now, if you're not subscribed to Football Daily, click that button, like the video if you've liked it, and we'll see you very soon.